for dropping by to view this ATTAIN Lab video on how to show and hide formatting symbols in Microsoft Word 2016. I've included a link in the description below to a downloadable file so you can practice the same setting changes I'll be demonstrating in this video. For your reference, I've also placed a link in the video description that will take you to the Microsoft website, to the Microsoft Office Specialist Word 2016 Skills Measured document. This file lists all the skills you should master before attempting the MOS certification exam in Word. One of those skills is showing and hiding the formatting symbols. Let's get started. I've opened the Lorem 2 practice document. If you'd like to open this document, you can follow the link that's listed in the description below this video. You can see that this is a 12-page document of Latin gibberish, so don't worry about reading the document to understand what we're about to do today. The button we'll be using today is located here on the Home tab in the Paragraph group. It's the button that looks like a backward letter P. You can see when I hover my mouse over the button, this is the ShowHide button, and it will show paragraph marks and other hidden formatting symbols. It's especially useful for advanced layout tasks. So what exactly does this button do? Well, first, let's start out by turning it on and off. It is an on or an off button. If you click it, it will turn dark gray. It is now on. If you click it a second time, it will turn off, and it will return to its normal lighter gray color. If I click it and turn it on, you can see these backward P shapes. These are paragraph marks here at the end of the word sunflowers and introduction. And that indicates that the Enter key was hit on the keyboard to create a new paragraph. These paragraph marks show at the end of the paragraph they are related to. So the word sunflowers here, even though it is only one word, is considered by the word software to be its own paragraph. And then after sunflowers, there is the word introduction that is also its own paragraph. And then something that looks more like a standard paragraph we're used to ends with a paragraph marker. So every time you see one of these backward P shapes, these paragraph markers, that indicates that the Enter key has been pressed on the keyboard. So here, with our paragraph markers on, we can see that every paragraph throughout this whole document ends with a paragraph mark, even the caption here under the photograph. Okay. They continue all the way down every time you hit the Enter key. And the paragraph mark actually matches the font of the paragraph that it's in. So that's why some are yellow and larger and some are black and smaller. Back to the top. If I were to hit print on this document now and send it to the printer, these paragraph marks would not print. The paragraph marks don't print because they're not part of the physical text of the document. They are invisible formatting marks that Word uses to place the text on the page. So as Word would be reading this document, it would read the word sunflowers and bump into this paragraph mark and know that you had pressed Enter and intended for there to be a new paragraph. Oh, hey, here is the end of this paragraph. Let's start this new one. This word introduction, and then we bump into this paragraph mark, and we can begin the next paragraph, which is the body text. Now, let me zoom in. As you're reading along, you can see between each word, there is a dot. That tiny little dot is the space bar on your keyboard. So they type the word lorem, then a space, then ipsum, then a space, then dolor, all the way down to the end of the paragraph where the Enter key was pressed. Beside the paragraph marks when you press Enter and the dots when you press the space bar, you'll definitely see some other formatting symbols when this button is on. For example, under the sunflower photograph, in the caption, I typed sunflower field at sunrise, and then I held the Shift key while I pressed Enter. and that made the down and to the left symbol that you see here on my screen. Then I typed downloaded from Bing Creative Commons 2020. If you look closely at that caption, you'll see that even though there are 2 lines within that caption, it is treated as one full paragraph. When I held Shift and Enter to make the symbol you see highlighted, that made a new line, but did not make a new paragraph. So no matter where I am clicked here in the caption, if I change the alignment of the paragraph, both lines will change, because Word is considering this whole caption to be a paragraph. And there's the paragraph symbol at the end of the paragraph. The Shift-Enter key to make a new line within a paragraph is really handy when typing out an address. I'll show you that later on in this video. Next, we'll look here on page 2, where we have a side panel with some facts about sunflowers that are formatted as a bulleted list. Zooming in, we can see that each bullet has a little sunshine, and at the end of the bullet there's a paragraph mark, which triggers the next bullet. So this second bullet is quite long, then there's a paragraph mark, and then the next bullet, and down to the next paragraph mark, which triggers the next sunshine bullet. If you look closely to the right of the bullet, you'll see a right arrow, and that indicates a tab. That's how Word treats bulleted lists. It places the symbol for the bullet and then a tab to the right, and the paragraph will all be lined up neatly underneath that mark. Over here on the left side of the screen, I'll press the Tab key on my keyboard, so you can see every time I press Tab, it's making a right arrow similar to what you see in the bulleted list. I've zoomed out really far so you can see the next section we're going to look at. That is right here on these 2 pages, where you can see that section of the article is split into columns, 2 columns per page. I've zoomed in here so you can see this. Right after medicinal and nutritional value, we type that heading and we pressed enter. You can see here's the paragraph mark. And then from that point forward, there is this mark, which is a continuous section break. So anything from this point forward is formatted in 2 columns. And this is hard to see, but that will continue along until it hits the end of the section, and there's another section break right there, a continuous section break. That ends the section. So this double dotted line here is a break. Sometimes they are hard to see in Word. They can be quite small, but you cannot see that piece of programming if your paragraph marks are off. So it is a really good habit to get into. Turn it on and off. It's a really good habit to get into, especially on the exam. If you have a question that you need to work on that deals with either inserting or removing different types of breaks, you should get in the habit of turning your paragraph marks on so you can spot them. The test may ask you to do something with the break, either remove it or put one in, and you can see that you've done it correctly with the paragraph marks on. So along those lines, if I wanted modern gardening best practices to fall on its own new page, I might want to put a page break right here before the M. And when I do that, you can see there's the page break. It falls on the previous page. So anything after that point ends up on its own piece of paper on the next page. And you can't see this page break happen without your paragraph and markers and formatting symbols on. So as Word is reading your document, it's working in one big column. As soon as it hits this heading and it bumps into the section break, this is the clue that Word says, oh, everything after this point now becomes 2 columns. So it will read down and then up to the next column and down. Same thing on this page, down, up to the next column and down until it hits the end of the section, and that will stop the columns. It'll go back to one wide column, but as the software is reading, it says, oh, and there's a page break. So now it heads on down to the next page where it continues in one wide column. So you can see how these formatting marks are working in the background, even when you can't see them. You may be thinking to yourself, this isn't something you would use every day. Or when in a practical sense would you use this feature? I can tell you I do use it quite often when I'm working with my lab participants. I'll give you some examples of when I use it every day. As I mentioned earlier, I use the paragraph marks all the time when I'm putting in or removing breaks of different sorts from my document. Another time I will use the paragraph marks is when I'm helping someone format a document. Let's imagine that my friend Joe Smith asked for help making his resume look good. He's looking for a new job. The first thing I personally would notice looking at this is that his name does not look quite centered on the page. So I might want to turn on the paragraph marks to see how he got it where he did. So when I turn them on, I can see he hit tab and the space bar a bunch of times. Now, these two dots are different sizes because the font is a different size. So here, the font was 11, but out here, the font was 18. So not only does he have space bars trying to move his name to the middle of the page, he has two different size fonts on the space bar trying to move his name to the middle of the page. This is an impossible way to get it exactly where it would be centered and look right. So what I can do is put my cursor before the J in Joe and backspace, or I could select the spaces and hit the backspace or delete key to back that up. You can see Joe's name is now evenly lined up with the margin here, and I could center it appropriately using the Center Align button here in the paragraph group on the Home tab. Now Joe's name is perfectly centered between the two margins. There are other videos on our playlist that help deal with paragraph spacing, but I'll quickly go over how we can make Joe's address look good and why the paragraph marks matter here. So by default, Word will put a space after a paragraph mark. For example, Joe Smith, here's the paragraph mark. I'm talking about this space where you see my cursor moving, the space between the lines. So that is set there by default. So every time you press the Enter key, Word will put some amount of space between the lines. And to make this address look right, we want it nice and snug without that spacing. This looks a little bit spread out to me. So here in the paragraph group on the Home tab, I can use the line and paragraph spacing button to remove the space after the paragraph. Now my cursor is blinking here in the Joe Smith paragraph. So to remove the space after that, notice the space after that paragraph mark is now much shorter. And I could do that again here with 123 Any Street. If I click into the address line and remove the space after that paragraph, it's now looking nice and snug and a little bit more neat. There's nothing wrong with that, but let me show you the better way. If while Joe was typing, he hit Shift Enter at the end of his name, he would get the down into the left arrow that I mentioned earlier in this video. And then he types 123 Any Street, Shift Enter, Troy, New York 12180. The difference that you see here is the top address block has 3 paragraphs: his name, his street address, and his city. But this address block is one large paragraph. So it is different in that when you align things here using the alignment buttons left, center, and right, that applies to the whole paragraph. So as my cursor is blinking here in his name, I can left align his name. but I would also have to do the address and the city as well as 3 separate paragraphs. So they could, in theory, be all over the page. Down here in the lower address block where I use the Shift Enter, this is one big paragraph. It just happens to have 3 lines of text. So it doesn't matter where my cursor is blinking within this address block, the whole address block will stay together if I go left, center, or right aligning it. So it is similar, but does act differently. So if you're finding that things aren't moving as you'd like, or are moving in strange ways, turning the paragraph marks on to see how a paragraph was constructed can be very helpful. With the paragraph marks off, they look identical. This video was designed to show you when and how to hide and show the formatting and paragraph symbols. If you'd like to learn more about setting different paragraph spacing options, click on the video in the upper right-hand corner. One last example of a good time to use the show and hide formatting symbols is when you're working with templates in Word. I've searched here for newsletter templates and I have a selection of samples on the screen. I can choose one of these templates that's close to what I want and then customize it to make it into something that's my own. For example, this technology newsletter, I'll double click it to launch it, and I can replace this Latin gibberish placeholder text similar to what I used with my actual article text. And you can see I have the paragraph marks on, so I can see where the paragraphs were created. Further down here on page 2, you can see the down and to the left arrow here on this title. So they did a Shift Enter here to make this heading look nice on that article. Same thing here in this pull quote. They use the Shift Enter to make these new lines in this paragraph. So using the paragraph markers on can help you decide how a template was created, because there are so many different ways to do things in Microsoft Word. To have a good understanding of how the template was created will make your life easier when you start customizing it for your needs. Thank you for watching this training video. If you'd like to learn more, please enjoy our Microsoft Office Specialist 2016 training playlists here on our YouTube channel. Or, if you're a New York State resident age 17 or older, consider joining us for a training workshop series. We'd love to meet you. Visit the website shown here or call the numbers on the screen to learn more about the Capital District Educational Opportunities Center ATTAIN Computer Labs.